in. There we go.
All right. Let's just get out of my. Sorry about the feedback. Meeting. Okay. All right. So hopefully, I'm going to try again, and let's hope this time it works. Because I do want to share my screen with you so that I can actually talk to some stuff. I want to share some information, videos, and so on. So let's try again. Let's hope this time it looks like it's getting it first time, hopefully.
Yeah,
okay.
Something is happening now.
Can you see my screen okay?
Yeah, I can see it.
Good. Okay, so I'm just going to walk you through this sort of a bit of an informal presentation, but I'm in an informal environment, so I'm going to go with it. So yeah, tonight is really about how do you develop this ability to let go of any fearful thought or emotion in minutes. I gave you a little taste of that. Did you enjoy the meditation, by the way?
Yes, very good. Thank you. Very, very nice.
That's a little taste of the kind of processes and techniques that I teach, and actually 7 of them, which are all about busting stress, which is really the same as fear. I'll explain that. Boosting your immune system. So given what's happening with the coronavirus, etc., that's kind of a priority. And it's not something that the mainstream media are talking about at all. How do you boost your immune system? And how do you ride this wild tiger of change? Because, I mean, the world is always changing. We know that. But, who would have believed if you'd said on New Year's Eve last year, in 3 months' time, you're all going to be locked down and not able to leave your houses? No one would have believed it, would they?
Yeah, true.
And yet, that's what happened. Not just here in South Africa, but to about 3 billion people. It's quite extraordinary. So how do you navigate this new territory to find happiness, what we all want, authentic happiness? And I'll explain what that is. Fulfilling flow, higher purpose, a sense of wonderful well-being, and actually thrive in these challenging times. Because I believe that in times like this, there's always opportunity. There's an opportunity for spiritual transformation, and there's also an opportunity when you do that to recreate your life, transform your life, and actually make these the best times. As Charles Dickens said, I think in one of his books, they were the worst of times and they were the best of times. And I think we're in those times now. And I think a lot of these old solutions, motivational books, workshops, personal coaching, hand sanitizer, these things are not really gonna, I think we kind of know they're not really gonna work. But what do we do instead? Pills, the drug industry, pharmaceuticals, psychotherapy. And so what I'm going to propose is a way that you can actually do this. You can actually use these times to transform your life and to thrive. Okay. So let me just ask you a question quickly. What brought you here? You don't have to answer. It's a rhetorical question. What brought you to the presentation tonight? Now, if you just pause and reflect on that for a moment, see that it's a search. You've been looking for something your whole life, and you might think that's better health, more money, a more fulfilling career, a relationship with that special person, your twin soul, or any one of many different goals in the world that seem to offer you something. If you really look beyond the form of these goals to what that something is, you'll see that what you've really always wanted, there's many names for this, but in a word, it's one of the better words for it, is happiness. We all want a sense of happiness, don't we? And what we think is that all these other goals that are outside of ourselves are going to make us happy. But they just don't seem to work, do they? So either we get frustrated and disappointed because our expectations aren't met, or even if we do achieve these goals, the satisfaction that we experience from achieving these is very temporary and fleeting. And so we seemingly have no other option but to then pursue something else that we think will bring us happiness. So it might be another workshop, or motivational book, another relationship, a better job, a nicer car, and add anything else that you think you want to this list. And then you'll finally be happy. That's the game the ego plays with us. But the truth is that none of these things will ever work to make you sustainably happy. Because, and this quote says it beautifully, happiness is really a butterfly, which when pursued is always just beyond your grasp, but which, if you will sit down quietly, may just come and alight on you. So it's the more we pursue it. In fact, it's in the Declaration of Independence, famous document that birthed the United States. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is actually in there. So not happiness, but the pursuit of happiness, which kind of is how that whole society and seeing as America's sort of set the tone for the last 100 years for the rest of the world. It's kind of the basis on which we live our lives, the pursuit of happiness rather than happiness itself. We're always looking for a way to find happiness, and it's always somehow external to us, isn't it? The media and obviously marketing gurus, big companies, they're going to tell you that there's something outside of you that you really need, and when you really get this thing, be it a new car, or the latest iPhone, or any number of other products. I mean, there's so much stuff you can buy now. It's or maybe at the moment you can't buy it, a lot of it, but I'm sure it'll come back on stream pretty soon. And marketing really is designed to convince us that we need this in order to make us happy. That's the underlying assumption. When you get this, you'll feel happier. You'll be in a better state of mind. And so it's an illusion. It's an illusion, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think we all kind of understand this, don't we? But it's to actually, how do you actually live this? How do you live this truth? And I know you're on a spiritual path anyway, Patrick. So none of this is new to you. But I don't think we can repeat these ideas too often, because it's very, very easy in today's world and society to slip, isn't it?
It's true, but I personally think that somewhere there is, that pursuit of happiness by external things it's always there until something happens in your life or whatever that. And I think it's a little bit by grace somehow, not a little bit, it must be by grace that suddenly you are given the opportunity or the chance to look in the other direction, and not to look so much out of you anymore, but to start looking within you, like you say in there. But to get to that, it's not something that I would have done consciously. I would have probably happily carried on living my life the way I was living it,
So what put you on the path?
Yeah, it's probably a combination of things. I've done so many things, from being brought up in a very religious sort of Christian environment, and going totally extreme into Scientology, then moving back into Jehovah's Witnesses.
Okay, that's quite
trying all sorts of things. But then you still, in my view, all these things were still external. It was looking for something outside of you, which would still change life. It's either God, or by praying to God, He will do something to change my life, or she, I don't know.
Yeah.
who you
Yeah.
actually
Some
are.
force external to yourself.
Yes. That is so, and that's what you find in Christianity, I think, a little bit. I suppose if you read the Bible properly, you would see it differently. But the way it is being presented, it's not quite like that, you know. So, and so it's still always external, you know. It's always doing something. And so there's a point, something somewhere. It just makes you realize, listen, you know, what am I chasing here? It's just always that external thing, and it just doesn't make any difference in any way. You know, which is so. I suppose there's like a breaking point somewhere. I don't know how to say it.
Yeah, a turning point. Yeah, you're right.
It's not.
It's called, you know, it's a turning point where you just go, okay, enough. You know, I've had enough of the suffering, the lies, the difficulty, really, that living unconsciously presents, that it creates. Chasing the wind. Remember someone who did my course last year, the Art of Letting Go course, which I'll talk a bit more about just now. She said it's like chasing the wind. I thought that's just such a beautiful way of phrasing it. It's like you're never going to catch it, are you? But that's the game. So many people are playing, chasing the wind, looking for happiness externally. But actually, it's always available. It's there. It's in you. That's what the quote's saying, in unlimited supply. But as this guy very succinctly put it, he said, happiness often relies on just one character trait, and that's self-discipline. Because you're not going to find it by being undisciplined in your thoughts and your actions, are you? If you just allow yourself to be swayed by whatever whim comes into your mind. Oh, you know, let me go and shop to make myself feel better, or stuff my face full of food, or take a drug, or do anything external to try and, you know, fill the hole. It's not going to work. It requires a disciplined mind. And so, if you ask yourself, and I know you have a spiritual path already, but just ask yourself, how many of these key spiritual...
Yeah, I'm losing you again. I don't know if it is you or, but I'm losing you again.
You're losing me again. Okay. Is that better? Maybe. Is that better?
Yeah, that's better. Yeah.
I think it's just because I was leaning forward a bit too much. Just depends where the microphone is, so I'll just lean back a bit. So if you ask yourself, you know, could you do this without any guidance or support on an ongoing basis, like daily or certainly regularly every week? Meditate for half an hour to an hour a day. So that's secrets number 1 and 7. Practice a mind training exercise from what I believe is the world's greatest spiritual master and teacher every day. And there's 3 secrets in there. Take 2 short breath breaks every day during which you consciously breathe and are guided through your mind training exercises. Listening to a 90-minute recorded or live spiritual discussion session 7 days a week. There's 2 secrets in there. Working through 12 transformational experiential exercises, reading 30 pages of extra summarized inspirational information over a period of 6 weeks. Reading 2 to 3 pages of what I believe is the world's most profound spiritual text, A Course in Miracles, every day. Meditating every evening, at least 20 minutes. Relaxing, reflecting on the day before you go to bed every night. And doing what I call metamorphic breathing. Most people would probably say, there's no way I'm going to do that on my own. Would you agree? I don't know about you.
No, not really. Not really. I mean,
I
think I'm pretty much already doing it.
Okay. You do all of that.
Not all of it,
No,
but I do a lot of studying of the scriptures and a lot of meditation. Well, a lot of 2 times half an hour every day. You know, meditation.
Well, I think you're probably in the elite 1%, Patrick. You actually, are quite disciplined.
No, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying that this is like religious every day. I mean, at the moment it's a little bit easier because now I'm locked in. So now to do my practices is easier. But you know, when you're on the road, when you're traveling all the time, then it's definitely a little bit more complicated. But yeah, I get a lot of I don't know how to say that, a lot of peace out of doing these things, out of reading the scriptures. I mean, it's like just before now, the hour before, we were also reading some interesting texts and so on. And It is just, there's so much. But okay, my real belief in all of that is that reading texts and all of that is nice, but it's the real practice. It's the practice of everything. So it's really the putting it into. I don't know how to say it in words, but
putting it to practice,
to putting it into practice. You know, there's no point in, you know, there's of course lots of people that can tell you, and they can tell you the whole story about everything, and it's very nice, but very often they themselves, you know, they are still driven heavily by desires and by anger and aversions of the senses and things like that. So there's, you know, it's to really practice every moment of your life. It's not the meditation is there. It sets the pace. I would call it that is the master key. The meditation is the master key. But then it's the really every moment to do that, like we were doing with the meditation exercise, that breathing, you know, just to be in this moment. Like you say, there is nothing else to do. There is just that. And if it is meditation or whether it is now listening to you, the only thing I have to do is just listen to you. There's nothing else to do. I don't have to be thinking about what I'm going to do tomorrow and be worried about what happened yesterday. It's just being here now and listening to you. And that is the practice. I mean, that is the most difficult thing you can imagine, because, like you say, if you could do that, you would be in the 1%, I think, continuously, you know. But that is really, and to be aware of everything. That's like you said, the aliveness, and that is it. That is really it. It is not complicated. It is not. How can I say? It is so the principle, the things behind it, is not complicated. The doing it is a different story. That is the practicing it. That is to remember every moment. You know, when you're walking, you're walking. You just feel yourself walking. You feel your feet on the ground. You do whatever. So you that is where everything goes. And anyway, so my mind is going mad again. So,
very well said. It's just about being present in the moment and being able to kind of flow with what's happening. And that's a lot easier said than done, because the mind is.
But even saying that, John, is already too much. You know, even by being in the flow, you're already talking about something else. It's not even that. It's not even being in the flow. It's just being.
Yeah, well, exactly. Totally. Being, and then
you put other things next to it, then it becomes more. It becomes more than what it really needs to be.
The idea of flow, I mean, I'll go into this in detail in the course. The idea of flow is that it's an extension of your being in action. So yes, if you're doing things in the world, which most of us have to, you know, act and do various things to participate in the world, function in the world. The idea is you do it from that place of beingness, and the beingness flows into your action, and that's really all flow is, where you're able to stay centered in your being and not have a whole lot of useless thoughts and emotions distracting you while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing, whether that's, you know, something as mundane as going to the toilet or driving a car, or, you know, you're actually doing something that you're absolutely passionate about, like playing a sport or doing art or whatever. The principles are the same in all of them. So into the Art of Letting Go course, what I've embedded is these, what I call 7 spiritual secrets. And they're not really absolute secrets, because you probably heard of most of these before. But the secret is to actually do them, is to actually be able to practice them in your life and integrate them really into your life in a way that that flows, in a way that you know, it's doable for you. It flows with your daily life. You can do your other things, participate in life, and still integrate these. It's not something you wait. I think a lot of people sort of go, well, you know, when I retire or when I go on a retreat, then I'll have the time to do this. The interesting thing is now, as you say, in lockdown, well, people actually do have the time to do it. But I would suspect that 99% of people are not doing most of these things, even when they have the time, because it's a discipline, isn't it? It's a desire that comes from your heart, and then it's the discipline to actually do these on a daily, certainly a regular basis. So the first one is multi-dimensional meditation, which incorporates breath work, visualization. I've created a 1-hour meditation that integrates about 4 or 5 different modalities. So you've got the breath, you've got light visualization, you've got touch, you've got sound using the binaural beats, which you listen to with stereo headphones, and also the toning of your voice. And all of these things together give the mind an experience where it's very, very difficult not to be totally present in the moment. That's the idea. So you're familiar with the idea of a mantra. So there are mantras. And depending on how a person is wired up, some people are more visual, some people are more kinesthetic, some people are more auditory. One of those modalities built into this meditation will appeal to you. You're going to be either visual, auditory, or kinesthetic. Those are the 3 sort of modalities, and those are all incorporated into it. Sometimes people try and meditate in a certain way, so they'll just say sit and say watch your breath, but they're very visually oriented. They're going to struggle with that because it's not appealing to their dominant sense. It might, if they persevered with it and they actually work through it, they might find that actually they have a breakthrough, and they really take their whole perception to a different level. But the idea, what I'm trying to do is make it easier for people to get into this, to start through that meditation, as you say, the foundation, just starting to ground themselves in this experience of beingness, the ground of being, as it's being called, as a foundational practice every day. Then we do some mind training exercises. So integrated with the meditation, when you're in that nice calm state. I actually did a little bit during the 2-step letting go process at the beginning of this, where I just asked you to go and scan your mind, look into your mind, and find any thoughts, any emotions that were negative, that were fearful. That's an example of mind training, but you're doing it in a meditative way. So these things really do complement each other. They're not, it's not this and then that. It's sometimes there's 2 or 3 things integrated into one practice. Then breath work. So we also incorporated breath work into that little meditation. So I took you through some nice deep breathing, some breath watching, where you just still and calm and you watch your breath. There was also some light visualization. So that was actually a little taste of a multi-dimensional meditation with these various elements integrated into it. Then we do group discussion sessions. So during the Art of Letting Go course, there's one live discussion session a week using this same platform, Zoom, just like we're having a discussion. But there's potentially, well, I can have up to 100 people in this room. But what works pretty well normally is between 5 and 10 people in a discussion session. And you start to get other people's ideas and perceptions, and everyone who's participated in these has said that they find them very valuable, just to connect with other people, get different ideas, different points of view, and to learn in a different way. I think it's a much more sort of non-linear way of learning than someone presenting a course to you. Me just, right, there's a video, there's module 1, watch the video for an hour or listen to the audio or whatever. much more interactive and engaging to learn in this way. Well, I find it, and so have most people who've done the course. So that's secret number 4, and that as I said that's pretty little known. There's not a lot of people who would really go, oh yeah, a group discussion session is something I integrate into my life on a regular basis. We do it. I mean, I know you go to some discussion sessions, don't you, on weekends? And I think anyone, we find it helpful, but it's just like, how do you integrate that into your life in a very doable way, especially now that we're all being restricted in travel and movement. And so the way is online discussion session. And secret number 5 is reading, as you mentioned, reading these texts, reading spiritual material, whatever you choose to read. Might be, I think you said you're reading the Bhagavad Gita.
At the moment I'm busy reading the Astavakra Samhita. I don't know if you know that one.
Okay, I've heard of it. I haven't read it, but there's some great spiritual text and material.
Fantastic.
And so that's integrated in the text that we read is A Course in Miracles, which is really a Western version of the Advaita Vedanta, which you're obviously familiar with. It's just another version of that put in a Western way, which includes some psychological concepts. Sorry, I've just got a bit of a crick in my throat. So are you familiar with A Course in Miracles?
Yes, I am. Yeah, actually, I've got it here. So.
Okay. Have you started reading it?
Yeah, it's yes, I have started reading it. Then I went into the exercises. Just I thought let me move on to there just to go and have a look. It's I'm sure if it's that sort of, like you say, people get attracted by different things. It's not 100% my thing. It's a bit. It's an amazing book, that's for sure. It's especially where if you look at where it came from. That lady that was like I think she was an atheist or something. I don't know what she was, but she was like completely. And then to come up with all of this, that to me, just so that sort of background, it just makes it quite a spectacular thing. I don't know. There's something about it. It's definitely the practical side. These exercises is that somehow, I find that quite interesting. But I think if you want to do that one, you must have a lot of self-discipline.
That's why I put together this course, because most people who do the course tend to get into it. They might start, and then somewhere along the way, sometimes in the first few lessons, sometimes they hit lesson 50 or 60. I knew someone who said she's never got past lesson 70. It's like just hits a wall for whatever reason, because the lessons challenge you. They're not that easy to do. They take you into part of your mind that is uncomfortable. You start looking at your ego, and to maintain that discipline to do it every single day, and then get up the next day, do the next lesson. The majority of people tend to fall off the wagon at some point. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about how it came, because it's very interesting. I don't know if it is actually in the course, in the preface, but this lady Helen Schuckman was a psychologist. She was a research psychologist at the Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York, of all places. Probably one of the most busiest, crazy mind cities in the world. It's quite interesting where this came, because I think it came in that context for a reason. And the reason it came was because it was designed to help the normal Western person with a westernized mind, very busy, lots of mind activity, very rooted in their personal and professional identity, ego, as it says here. You know, these two had a difficult relationship. There was another guy, William Thetford, who was her boss, basically, who helped her with this task of scribing the course. And they were anything but spiritual. The relationship was strained, had a lot of conflict. They were concerned with personal and professional acceptance and status. In general, they had considerable investment in the values of the world. And their lives were hardly in accord with anything that the course advocates. It just shows you that, you know, the truth can come through anyone. If it can come through Helen, who was, you know, atheistic. She was conservative. She was an educator. She was an atheist. And she was quite highly strung. She was quite an anxious person. And what happened was they were driving at some point to another disciplinary hearing, which they had frequently, to sort out, you know, some conflict that had been going on. And this guy, Bill Thetford, just kind of in frustration said to her, you know, there must be a better way than this. I'm tired of all this anger, this aggression, this conflict. And he said, surely there must be another way. And Helen, to her surprise, actually agreed. She said, yeah, I agree. There must be a better, there must be a better way. And I'll help you to find it. And that was the turning point you talked about for them. You know, it was suddenly they just got, they'd had enough. There's a great Afrikaans expression, gatvol. You know, they've just had enough. It's like gatvol of it. They've had enough. It's enough. And he, in that moment, said, okay, you know, I'm open. There's got to be another way. And because she agreed with him, there was a meeting of the minds. And when, you know, two or more join in my name, as the Bible says, then the Spirit is there. And so that was really an invitation to this presence that the Course calls the Holy Spirit. You can call it intuition. You could call it your higher self. It doesn't really matter what you call it. You know, different paths and religions have different names for it. But it's a presence. It's something in your mind that sort of knows that there's something else other than just this physical material world you seem to live in.
Yeah.
And so they had this little willingness. And over the next 3 months, as she explains here, before she started actually writing the course, she started having these highly symbolic dreams. She had descriptions of strange images in her dreams. She had some waking dreams. And this was all ready to prepare her for what was to come. One night, I think it was in October of 1965, this voice that had started speaking to her and had identified himself as Jesus. So she knew who she was talking to, and she confided in Bill and said, okay, well, you know, just, this isn't unknown. This does happen. So we don't think you're going crazy. Just write down what it says. And, and that's what she started doing. You know, the voice said, this is a Course in Miracles. Please take notes. And so she started taking these notes she describes it as a kind of rapid inner dictation, which she took down in a shorthand notebook. And sometimes it would come and then it would go and it would be picked up again exactly where she left off, hours or sometimes days later. And she would take that in to work. And Bill Thetford, her colleague, would simply say to her, okay, you read it out to me and I'll type it up. And that's how A Course in Miracles came into being. Over the course of 7 years, the entire course, which is nearly 1,300 pages, and there's a few other bits and pieces that were given afterwards, the years afterwards. But basically, the course consists of a manual for teachers, a text, which is the theory of the course, and a workbook for students, which is the practical exercises you mentioned. And then they subsequently, once they typed it all up, they edited it, and it first got published in 1976. Fortunately, it was published without copyright. And as a result of that, without a copyright notice, as a result of that, it's actually freely available. So you don't have to buy the course. You have it, but you don't have to buy the course. It's all freely available on the internet. And what I do in the course is I send you the links I say, you know, there's your reading for today, text reading, there's your workbook reading. And so it's just kind of a structured way of working through it, which most people in the community have said is very helpful, because otherwise it's very easy to just forget. Oh, you know, forgotten where I am, got busy for 3 days, I've lost my place, and then often people just abandon it. They don't actually just continue because
Yes.
they just lose the momentum. So really what I've done is put together a structured program to walk people through this pretty phenomenal course. It's one of those things that has deeper levels of significance. I'll explain them what that means. So deeper levels of significance means that you read something, and the first time you read it, it sort of makes some impact. You're like, okay, and then you might read it again the next day or 6 months or a year later, and it has a deeper significance for you. It takes you deeper into your mind, it reveals something else. And I think all great spiritual texts have that property.
Yes.
So that's why they're timeless. They never age, because you can read them and read them and read them again. And each time you read something that's profound and deep, you will get a different experience, maybe a deeper experience. Something else reveals itself. It's not like a fiction novel where you read it and you're like, okay, yeah, you know, I can read that once and then I know the story. There's no deeper significance. It's a story, and you know, I get it. And so that's what the course does. Is, you know, I've been working with it for 15 years nearly, and I'm still working. I'm still learning from it. I still do a lesson every day, and it's probably engaging me more than it did 15 years ago. I understand it on a deeper level, but that's what it does. It takes you deeper and deeper into your own mind, and so that's, you know, that's what the course does. And then just to finish the day, a pre-bred reflection is another nice little secret that a lot of people don't do. Just pause, you reflect on your day. You go, okay, so how could I have done it differently? If something happened, you reflect on it. You know, how could I have thought differently, behaved differently? Which means that you've learned from the day. It means you've reflected and you've made the most of that. Instead of having to go and repeat that learning over and over again, you try and make the most of every day, and just use the reflection to help you to inculcate that learning. And then number 7, which you'll notice is incorporated in all of these practices here, that are incorporated in the Art of Letting Go course, is this idea of letting go, or forgiveness, as the course calls it. It's really the same thing. I call it letting go, so I think it's more understandable for people. I think forgiveness, there's a lot of misconceptions about what forgiveness is, what the word means. There's religious connotations that go with it. Letting go is less easy to misunderstand. So when you let go of something, there's a very clear, okay, I'm letting go of the thought, I'm letting go of the emotion. And again, you experienced some of that in the little meditation we did. So there were four aspects to that meditation. And really letting go or forgiveness is incorporated into all of these. All of these are really designed to help you to get good at this ability to let go of negativity. And in all my studies, all my spiritual practicing over many years, I've been doing this for 20 or more years, I guess, on a spiritual path. That for me is the key thing. Can you let go of negative thoughts and emotions? Because if you can't, then you're bound up. You're bound to the fear.
Yes.
You're bound to the negativity. If you can let go of it, then you can be free of it, and you open yourself up to a different experience, a more loving, connected, expanded experience. And so, you know, there's many courses, there's many approaches. I've been down the road of personal growth. I've done Tony Robbins seminars. I've I did a lot of personal growth stuff until sort of my late 20s, and then I had this experience where I had to let go of my lifelong dream. You know, I think you know some of my history. I was a professional squash player.
Yeah. I know. I remember.
You know, I had this idea that, you know, in order for my life to be worthwhile and for me to have any value, I had to be the best. There was no alternative. I had to be number one, which in hindsight is obviously an ego idea that, you have to be number one. You have to be the best. You have to be more special than everyone else. But, that's what I believed. And I pursued it pretty passionately and with all my will and intent and resources for 15 years, something like that. So eventually in my late 20s, I remember the moment. I was just sitting by the side of a court. I just lost to this chap who was, I played him in practice. He was in the top 20 in South Africa. So he was a decent player, but he certainly wasn't a world beater. And I hadn't had a particularly good, good game, and I'd lost. And I remember just sitting there and going, you've got to get real. It's not going to happen. You're in your late 20s and you're not even close to this. And you're running out of time. If I had another 10 years, maybe. But in your late 20s, if you haven't kind of made it in squash, you're not going to make it.
Yeah.
And so that really caused me to reflect and say, okay, so I've really pinned my entire life on this idea that I'm defined by what I do. That, my value, my worth, my success, everything that I think I want is defined by what I do, by this thing that I've chosen to attach to, which is a sport, and the achievement that I what I achieve in that sport. And actually, it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked. I've got to like my late 20s, and it hasn't worked. And now I have to let it go. I've got no option, because I know that there's just no way I'm going to do this. It's, I've run out of time. It's too late. Which really caused me to back up and look at all of these things that I'd studied up to that point. I'd done the Napoleon Hill, What the Mind of Man Can Conceive and Believe It Can Achieve, Tony Robbins, and I really focused on it. I'd done goal setting, I'd done visualization, I'd set my intent, I'd written my goals, I'd gone, okay, well, I've got to take action. It wasn't like I wasn't acting on them, and yet it hadn't worked. As you say, I guess that for me, that was a turning point. It was like, okay, well, I've really got to back up and question and go, well, why hasn't it worked? Maybe there's something fundamentally flawed with these teachings that I've been following, that I've believed to have been true. Maybe there's something else. And I think that opened the door for me to start going into the spiritual world. Because I was like, okay, well, what else do I do? And at the time I started reading The Power of Now by Eckhart Tolle, which had just been released. And I was like, wow, I remember just speaking to him. I was like, how can I live my entire life, nearly 30 years, and not have understood this? That actually there's only really now. Isn't it like the most basic, obvious thing? And yet, I remember I'd read the first chapter about a year before, and I obviously wasn't ready for it. It hadn't really made an impact. I was like, yeah, whatever. And I just carried on my track. But it's, when you're ready for it, then suddenly it hits you like a ton of bricks, and you go, okay, actually, there's really something to this. There's something way beyond the mind and the goal setting and the expectations. And I remember there was a conflict, because Eckhart Tolle says, well, don't set goals, don't visualize. And I'm like, but hang on, these other guys I've been reading are saying, do that. So, I can't do both. It's one or the other. You've got to make a choice. But, the more I read of those kinds of books, I read other books like Neil Donald Walsh, the Conversations with God series, Life and Teachings of the Masters of the Far East, which is a great series of books. I don't know if you've read that. Some fantastic teachings. The Urantia book, various things like that. Whatever I could get my hands on, the more it became clear that there was a totally another way of thinking and behaving in life that wasn't real, and that wasn't my normal default modus operandi. Wasn't it? Pursuing some goal to make me happy and fulfilled wasn't going to cut it anymore. And so I also started meditating as part of my squash. So I think that opened me up. I just found myself being taken along this path at quite a young age, I suppose. I was quite fortunate, late 20s. Some people only start doing this in their 40s or 50s.
Exactly.
Very fortunate. But I guess I'd had that experience. I had to have the real disappointment of like, okay, so everything you've worked for since, maybe age of 12 or something, I set this intention. I want to be the world champion. Everything for the last 20 years it's been in vain. It hasn't worked. So what do you do then?
Yeah.
And but you know, that's I think when the real spiritual journey starts. So then I started to teach some of the principles. I started doing workshops and so on. And this Course in Miracles book kept cropping up. I remember doing a session with someone co-presenting, and he said, "Oh no, Course in Miracles, it's the true teachings of Jesus." I was like, "Oh, okay, that's interesting," because I've always been fascinated by the life of Jesus, but I sort of understood that what was told in the Bible wasn't really the whole picture. And so eventually I bought the book in 2006. I was like, okay, started reading it as I read other books, and it kind of got me. I mean, to be honest, the first time you read the course, it goes mostly over your head, but there's something in it that hooks you, and it's that presence or that essence, isn't it? It speaks to anew. You know, I just guess I've just kept at it for the last 14 years. It's like, okay,
Sure.
there's something in this that is so deep and so profound. I don't think I need to look anywhere else. So I mean, I just need to master this. I think there's a great temptation to be a seeker all your life. You know, I know people who go to talks virtually every night. They're going to another talk, and they've been doing that for years. And you're like, but is that really being on a spiritual path, or is that just another version of seeking externally to yourself? Something outside of yourself. You know, I think a real spiritual path is when you go deep. Okay, that's the path, and I'm going to go deep into this, and I'm really going to try and master and apply these principles in my life. And I guess that's what discipline is all about, isn't it? So I've put myself on a pretty rigorous course over the last 14 years of mind training through the course of meditation. I meditate every day. I got into breath work 10 years ago. I was fortunate enough to meet a chap by accident, so-called, in my next to a coffee shop next to my yoga studio, and he never went there. But that was the one time he did go there, because his normal print shop was closed. They had a power outage or something, and I happened to walk in at the same time, and you know, we just got talking, and he'd done a lot of breath work in Monaco, actually, with some of the Monaco Olympic team, and the trainer there had been taught by the Russian trainer who taught all the Russian Olympic athletes. And I was still into squash at that stage, still playing quite seriously. So he taught me all this breath work, the power breathing. I just, you know, took you through some of the power breathing when we did the initial meditation. And so that was another modality. And as you say, these things just kind of come by grace. You know, you happen to meet the right people, the right things unfold at the right time. And that takes you on the next step in your journey. So it's totally the opposite of goal setting and saying, right, you know, I think I want to do this, and I need to do this in order to get there. You know, so I need my 1 year, my 2 year, my 3 year, my 5 year goals. That never really worked for me. I don't think it works for anyone, because life doesn't work that way. You can't predict exactly what's going to happen in the next, even in the next 6 months. I mean, as we've seen in the last 6 months, I mean, you know, you could have had all kinds of goals and dreams and ideas for what 2020 should look like, and then along comes the coronavirus. It's like, well, sorry, that's all scuppered. That's not going to happen now. So it's a much more sort of intuitive, flowing way to flow with life, instead of getting stuck into this cycle that most people do. Where, you know, we're working harder to earn more money, to buy more stuff and more experiences we think will make us happy, which increases our expenses and our debts, which increases our stress levels, makes us work even harder, which leads to all this negativity, negative emotions, and a lot of dysfunctional behavior, anger, depression, addictions. You know, I think we live in a pretty sick society, and what's happening with COVID-19 is just a symptom of that. It's more than just a virus. It's symptomatic of a deep-seated dis-ease, where, you know, people are just functioning at really suboptimal levels, and so they become very susceptible to, you know, a physical disease in whatever form, way, shape, or form that shows up. A virus. I'll talk about the virus a little bit later. But really, it's their immune system and their health and well-being already compromised, and so they are much more susceptible to whatever shows up. And in all of us, we forget about being who we really are, which is happy, in flow with life, and truly being well. This idea of being well-being, which has being as at its root. We can't be well unless we connected with our beingness, rather than doing. So I think, spiritually speaking, this coronavirus and the quarantine and lockdown, although it's put people under a lot of pressure, maybe financially, a lot of stress, it might just be the best thing that's ever happened to them, because they're forced to stop and go, okay, I can stop this insane cycle, and I've got this little window of opportunity, this downtime, where I can actually go within and I can do some inner work. I can start to look at some of these patterns of busy doing, the dysfunctions that go with it, the stress, the anxiety, frustration, addiction, depression, and so on. And maybe do something about them. Maybe start to let them go. The truth is, we're so wired up. The brain and the body's biochemistry is so wired into this habitual pattern that sometimes we need a complete pattern interrupt to actually get us out of that. Don't we?
Yeah, 100%. 100%.
Deepak Chopra, I was listening to him a few months ago, and he said this very profound thing, and I hadn't heard it said in such a succinct way. So I've quoted it here. Stress is just the perception of external threat. It's like, that's actually all it is. When I perceive that I'm threatened by something outside of me, that creates stress, which is fear. It's the same thing. Fear and stress go hand in hand. So the apparent force of our stress. Yeah, it's perception, isn't it? It's not the actual threat, it's the perception of it that's the problem.
Exactly.
Which points us directly to the solution, doesn't it? Because if it's a perception, then if I can change my perception, then I can be free of the stress. I can't free myself of the external threat. I can't change COVID-19 and what's happening globally. That's beyond my power to change. But my perception I can change. So fear and stress are really one and the same thing. And there are many, many scientific studies that have proved the detrimental effects of stress to human and animal health, because they've done experiments with rats and so on, which include headaches, high blood pressure, heart problems, diabetes, skin conditions, asthma, arthritis, depression, anxiety, and I could go on. There's probably a list of 20 or 30 or more. And then lowered immunity, which means you have an increased susceptibility to viral and bacterial infections, which kind of is insane, because the more fear that the media generates, the more they lower people's immunity, the more susceptible they are to any kind of infection.
That's what they're saying, that a lot of people are getting sick because of that, because of the stress. That's what
and because of the suggestion is very powerful. If you keep suggesting to people and they're watching the news, there's illness, there's sickness, you're vulnerable, you can get sick, over and over again. If the mind accepts those messages, then you will manifest that. That's how it works. The mind is a powerful manifester. And how that works physically is that when we feel under threat, when we feel fear, our bodies produce a potent cocktail of really powerful hormones and stress chemicals. Adrenaline, cortisol, epinephrine, norepinephrine. These are chemicals that activate us to go into this fight or flight mode, which I'm sure you're familiar with, so I don't need to tell you. But it's just that mode where we geared up to fight or flee, which was very necessary in prehistoric times, when we actually did have a life-threatening adversary, where there was a lion or a hostile member of another tribe. It was dangerous times. But now there isn't a life-threatening adversary 99.9% of the time. It's just COVID-19 or some other threat being beamed at you through the television device, because it tells you your vision. That 99.9% of people watch every day. I've been without the TV for nearly 6 weeks now. I have to say it's been amazingly liberating. Not that I ever really watched much of it anyway, but I couldn't help it because I was staying with my parents, and I'd walk through the lounge and they'd have it on like all the time, giving you the latest coronavirus stats and figures, and Ramaphosa coming into your living room. It's interesting. I actually sent out a mail yesterday today this morning about in the 80s there was this chap called Johannes Kerkorrel. You probably don't know him.
No.
But he was one of these Afrikaans protest singers, and he sang the song "Sit It Af," which means you probably know what that means.
Yeah, switch it off.
Switch it off. Yeah, switch off the TV. So when this horrible, he says like this nare gezicht, this horrible face of P.W. Botha, who was the leader at that time. He was, I have to say, he was probably one of the ugliest men you could wish to see. When this nare gezicht just comes in your face, just turn it off, switch it off. Which was some great personal development advice, really, because why expose yourself to all this negativity and really these powerful chemicals? It's very difficult to not be affected when you're watching all these images.
I remember right in the beginning, I must also have been, 2-3 hours a day. Just if it wasn't on TV, it was on the internet, looking at the news 24, what is the latest. I think I still have that one, what is it, the worldometer or something like that, where they show you. It's just, I don't know what it is, it just attracts you somehow, isn't it?
It's addictive.
You just want to know.
These images, and this is what mass media and marketing gurus and stuff have figured out. When you give people moving images, there's something in our perception, in our minds, that wants to follow that, doesn't it? It wants to suck you into that. It's just the way we wired up, and it takes a lot of self-discipline to say no. I'm not going to allow my mind to go there, because there are powers that be that want you to go there. Whether they big corporations wanting to market something to you, or mass media wanting to tell you the story of the coronavirus and how real it is and how terrible and how threatening. Really, it's digital suppression via mass media medication, I call it. I thought that was quite good. That's what they're doing. They're medicating you through your own body, your own biochemical system, which is very powerful. We produce drugs that are way more powerful than they can produce in labs, synthetic drugs. And those chemicals get activated with certain stimuli, like the images, information, etc., about something that's threatening, and then it's virtually impossible. It was interesting because I was in Joburg just for maybe a week, 10 days before the lockdown happened, and then I left. But I noticed in that time just how almost oppressive it was. It was really difficult to maintain a clear mind and be in a nice light-free state when you've got all of that stuff being bombarded at you. And as I said, I didn't willingly expose myself to it, but I couldn't help it because I'm staying in a house and it's not my house, where people are addicted to the TV and they want to watch the news, not just the 6 o'clock news, the 7 o'clock news, the 8 o'clock news.
It's always the same.
I wouldn't, but every now and then I'd walk through, and obviously those kinds of attitudes that it breeds, the fear and the stress that comes through. It's like, whoa, what's happening here? This is mind control. That's what's happening on a massive scale. This program, really, I developed this last year, as you know, but I think it's never been more needed than now, because it's about just getting people to start to free themselves of that false ego. Really, it's the ego thought system, in a very systematic, structured way. That it's like a training course. Okay, you need to train your mind to start to think and perceive very differently in order to resist this mass media information overload, because we're being exposed to it all the time. I'm not so much here because I've gone into the mountains, but the majority of people living in cities and towns can't do that. So, you're being exposed to it. So, okay, then what you can change is your perception of it. And that's what the intention of the Art of Letting Go course is to help people to change their perception. I've incorporated these 5 elements into it, which correspond with the elements of nature. So first of all, it's based on the truth. This highest wisdom, the non-dual truth that the Advaita Vedanta teaches, that is incorporated into actually not into many Western paths, but A Course in Miracles is the Western equivalent of the Advaita Vedanta. Bill Thetford, one of the original scribes, even said that. He said it's just a different way of stating the same thing.
Yes,
it comes through a kind of a psychological, because they were psychologists. So he brings in psychology along with Christian spirituality, uses the Christian terminology, which can be off-putting for some people. And then this highest kind of mystic wisdom of this, internal experience of connecting with love or God, whatever you want to call it. So it's quite an interesting combination of these different influences, put in a way that really, Helen Schuckman said that it's for intellectuals. So this is finally a spiritual path for intellectuals, he said, because it's something that even the most intellectual mind will struggle with. You can be as bright as anything, and you will struggle with some of these ideas because it really starts to push your buttons. It starts to make you really deeply question. Okay, so what do I really believe? What is reality then? What is really going on?
I found it very much in the conversations with God from Neil Donald Walsh. Some of these, actually, because he also said that he wrote it, it came through him somehow.
Yeah.
That's what he said.
Sort of channeled,
Yeah, it was channeled. But if you really read it, you think to yourself, there's just no ways that anybody can write something like that from his own. This is like so totally, I don't know.
Out of the normal sort of consciousness.
Yeah. Where do you get that stuff from? This is not possible.
Yeah. So, Helen said that. Bill, the first time Helen brought her script in, she'd written on the first night. So she brought it in the next day, and he's reading this, and he's going, "Okay, Helen, no disrespect here, but this isn't you." He said, "I know it's not me. That's what's freaking me out. What is it then?" It's another voice that came into her mind, which was the voice of Jesus, or you could call it the Holy Spirit, or higher self. Doesn't really matter. It's a higher consciousness coming in just via her, using her mind to transmit this stuff in.
Well, she opened herself up for it. She opened herself up. Something opened up. There was that door or something that opened, that allowed that voice to come in. That is the self.
She had the willingness. If she hadn't given the invitation, it couldn't have come. But she obviously had a certain kind of a mind that was able to do that. And so, it came through because she had a mind where it could be transmitted in. And for whatever reason, Jesus chose her other than anyone else. So quite, there are no accidents. So that's the first step.
But I think it adds to the whole thing, the fact that she was totally not predisposed to do something like that. Imagine that it would have been, let's say, some sort of a priest or a bishop somewhere that would have written that. I think it would have had a different sort of thing to it, wouldn't it? Because he's already predisposed to the whole idea. Now here you have somebody that's totally like,
she's an atheist, so but she's not spiritual at all. So maybe it was like, well, this is the perfect person because she doesn't have all kinds of religious and spiritual dogma in her mind already. Yes, she had her own other beliefs that showed up, and that's why she was uncomfortable, because he was pressing up against those existing beliefs. We all have a program.
Yes.
But it is interesting that it wasn't didn't come through an overtly spiritual person or a channel, someone who's channeling. It came through just, it's just a normal person who's quite academically oriented, actually not spiritual at all. And this amazing spiritual teaching. I mean, I've never read anything like it. I've read quite a lot of other stuff. I haven't really gone deep into the Vedanta, to be fair, but I have read a bit of the Bhagavad Gita and stuff. But the depth and the profundity of what he says and the precision of his language, every word, every sentence is constructed. So there's no fluff, there's no waffle. You can't go, oh, well, I'll just ignore that sentence because it's just waffle. Saying something with every word and every sentence, which is kind of a work of mastery. She couldn't write something like that. It's powerful.
Yes, exactly.
I don't think any human being in this domain could actually write something like this, because I think we're too limited in our human perception to be able to do that. It requires a mind that has freed itself from time and space, but also understands time and space and understands what actually goes on down here. And that's what Jesus was. He was a way show. He's like, okay, I know the way out because I did it, but I've transcended it. But I know where you are, and I can meet you where you are, and I can sort of lead you out of that. Which is what the course is designed to do. And so it's called a course in miracles because it's a course in mind training your mind to perceive differently. And the different perception that we talked about, not perceiving through the eyes of the ego, not perceiving fear and stress and so on, and not going down that whole normal ego track, is what the course is designed to do. Saying the enlightenment and ascension and revelation, as he calls it, is beyond the scope of this curriculum. I can't teach you those things. Those will come of themselves already. What I can teach you how to do is to change your perception. Through this really pretty immersion. So all of these key spiritual practices centered around the mind training of the course that we do over a period of 6 weeks really immerse you in these teachings, in not just the ideas, the concepts, but some of the experiences that they bring. And if you can start to have an experience of something deeper, that's life-changing, isn't it? Once you've had the experience, you go, okay, well, I can't deny that.
Once you see the light once, that's it. You don't need to.
I can't deny it anymore. There's something there. And,
exactly.
Then it hooks you and you're like, okay, well, I've got no other option. I have to follow it. I have to go and find out, what is there? What is that? And in that, maybe that's where I'll find my salvation, as it, of course, talks about. I'll find freedom from the fear and the negativity and the worries and all the stuff that besets the normal human being on this planet. But it requires, I think, an immersion. I think too often people, if you dabble in stuff, there's a lot of online courses where they'll go, okay, we do a once a week session. And you're going to do an hour or two a week, and there's the course, and you do a video, maybe a live discussion, or so on. And I don't think that even scratches the surface of really changing
I agree
perception
with you.
in 6 weeks.
It's something that somehow, but again, how does that happen? That is the question. It is something that becomes you. That's sort of, I don't know how you would call it. That's call it search, but I don't even call it search anymore. It's not searching because I know it's there. So it's not search. Not that I'm fully realized that, not at all. Of course not. Nothing to do with that. But even searching is like it's like doing something. What are you searching for? You're searching for something that's
already you.
I don't know.
That's already there.
How to say it. It's already there.
It's already there. Which is kind of the joke of it, isn't it? They say enlightenment, when you come enlightened, you realize it's a joke, because it's like, I've been searching and searching all this time for what was always there. How ridiculous is that? But it's a process we've all got to go through. The search, it starts with the search and a seeking. And then, I think if you go deeper, and that's really the purpose of this course, is to give people some of that deeper insight in a pretty short period of time, in 6 weeks. And in that 6 weeks, they have an experience that says to them, okay, yeah, I get this now. And this is my path. This is what I need to do. I can't just go back.
Yeah.
So after 6 weeks and go, oh,
Exactly.
well, nice
It is a
course,
deep-
carry on with my life as it was. It really is life-changing because something has shifted in them over those 6 weeks. And what I will say for this, and there's some, we probably won't have time tonight, but there's some testimonials and stuff on this webpage. You can go and watch the videos in your own time. People who have done the course properly and stuck with it have actually set themselves on a spiritual path. You know, they haven't just gone back to how they were. They've gone, actually, this has put them on a different path, because that's ultimately what we all need, is a spiritual path, where they're using the course and they're using some of the other techniques and tools that I've created around the course to just help them to live in this way. So it becomes their way of life, rather than, oh yeah, I did a course, learned some stuff, and okay, what's next? There's nothing next. It's okay, you're going to live that way day in, day out for the rest of the days, and hopefully go deeper into it and get more and more rooted in your beingness. The 6 weeks was just the start of that. So I give them the structured and guided daily schedule. So every day you get an email. I'll show you an example here of one of these emails, which comes in, and there's your kind of structure for the day. Okay, so that's, you're going to do a meditation in the morning. I give you the links. You're gonna do this reading today. I send out a breath break. I think you're on one of the groups, aren't you? On WhatsApp.
Yes.
You get one of those. You get 2 a day of those. So
I'm not saying that I'm listening to them every time, but
no, I mean, I understand, you're busy. But the idea, if you do the 6-week course, is you try and commit to going, okay, for 6 weeks, I'm really going to immerse myself in this, and follow the structure as closely as I can, so that I can get the best experience I can. That's the whole point, because it's your experience, and
it's your experience. Exactly.
The more you put in, the more you're going to get out. If you only put in an hour or two a week, well, can you really expect life transformation in an hour or two a week? I'm not sure. Maybe it's possible you can get an epiphany in an hour or two a week.
Yeah.
But generally, what I've found with this course, because I've run it, there's a couple of dozen people who've gone through it, is that so there's an example of this kind of email you get. You get a schedule for the day. You get your lesson in the email. So basically, you don't need the course. If you've got the course, great, you can use it. But that's your kind of reference point for the whole day. And then you get a schedule. Okay, so ideally, do this, do your meditation, give you a choice of different lengths of meditation to do. You then get your essence statement. We work through a process where you get that in the 6-week course. You get your essence statement, which you start practicing. Then the Course in Miracles lesson for the day, which you use as your mind training. You get a breath break, which I send to you normally around lunchtime. And then the second breath break in the evening. We do 2 live meditations as well. So if you want to join those, you can join live via Zoom in the same way you've done, and get a meditation at 1:30. And then again at 6 or sometimes 8. So 6 p.m. 4 days a week and 8 p.m. 3 days a week. So Tuesday, Thursday, and Sundays 8 p.m. If you want, it's up to you. So, but the point is, every day you're going to get.
As I say, I already meditate. I do it in the morning when I get up. So normally I'm up at about anywhere between 4 and 5, and then I quickly have some tea, and then I do my meditation. And then
that's great.
Whatever. Then my day is set.
Yeah. It's the best way to.
Without it, it's a little bit something's missing.
Yeah, I know what you mean. It makes a huge difference. So that's great. You've already got a kind of a structure. If you want to do the 6-week course, maybe you just try doing my meditation. I've got a guided letting go meditation instead of what you normally do, or sometimes you alternate. It's entirely up to you. I mean, I'm not prescriptive. I'm just going to give you the schedule and say, look, this is what I recommend, and you fit it into your schedule and your day as you choose, as you can and as you choose. There's also this daily communication. So there's live sessions you can do twice a day, the meditation sessions. There's a live group discussion every week on a Sunday evening, where you just get to check in, so you can bring up anything that's arising for you, and we discuss whatever's arising for people. And then normally we do a bit of reading out of A Course in Miracles and a meditation. And that's kind of the structure. It's an hour and a half to 2 hours. And every day I will send you a recording. So I did a pretty intensive 6-week course last year in September, the group of people, where we did every day except Saturday. We were doing a discussion session, and I recorded all that material. So I send you a link to one of those recordings every day. So if you want a discussion, a group discussion, you don't have to participate in it. You're not participating, but you're listening to it. Which means that you can listen to it while you jogging, cycling, running, cooking, any of those activities. Driving is a good one, although you're probably not driving much now given that you're housebound. But normally, if you're driving, great thing, you put on the audio and you just listen, and you actually get access to the discussion, which we generally talking about today's lesson. But what I like about the discussions is that they come alive, because it's real people. People,
exactly.
As real as people are. Okay, ultimately everything here is illusory, but on this level, it's not some theoretical. The course is quite theoretical, although it is trying to teach you to apply it in your daily life. But often people can get disconnected. They're like, okay, how do I actually live this? How do I do this? And so what the group discussion sessions do is they make it very practical. Because it's like, okay, you hear people who are having normal, daily life challenges, and they bring them up, and then we discuss them with these principles, and how do you actually apply the principles. And so a lot of people resonate with the people, the personalities, as well as with their issues. And okay, so yeah, I'm having that issue. Great. There's a discussion on how do I deal with a difficult child, for instance, as an example. We had all kinds of discussions like that. So it became very, very practical and very kind of real and doable, rather than just some course in theory, which is not really where it's at. And then the fifth element is the positive group energy, which is the fire element. So just by being connected to a group, I found has a huge impact on people.
Yes.
Because the energy rubs off on them. If you're in a group of like-minded people, positive or negative, it's going to rub off on you. You can't help it. We absorb energetic frequency from people, and that can be transmitted. You don't have to physically be there. It can be transmitted via technology, just by us interacting here. There's a transmission of energy happening, and so that's what happens in the group discussion and the meditation sessions. So there's a group energy, and if you connect to that energy frequently, that's going to help you enormously to stay with the program, rather than being isolated on your own. Most people will struggle with the program like this on their own, because they just don't have that fire. There's not something stoking them up, and the kind of internal accountability. It's not like anyone is saying to you, you have to do this, and oh, bad boy, you didn't. But it's more just like, okay, I'm part of this process. There's a group of people doing it with me. I kind of want to be part of the process. So yeah, I'll stick to it. And that's a huge motivating factor for people to actually go through the whole 6 weeks and finish the course and get the benefit. And I've found that a lot of people really have breakthroughs in like week 5 or week 6. They suddenly just something drops for them, and they're like, wow, that's amazing. Yeah. There's this one chap, he was in his 80s actually. He studied the course for 27 years. Phil was his name, and Phil had this epiphany on the last day of the course, where we'd done a metamorphic or holotropic breathing session, and he said, okay, the session was nice, but nothing particularly significant happened then. But the morning afterwards, he listened to the music that I'd shared with him again, and obviously just been through a 6-week process, so it was open. And then he said, just like everything dropped for him, and he had this profound cathartic experience around his parents. So he said he realized that all his life since he was a kid. He'd kind of thought that his parents weren't good enough. They somehow, hadn't been good enough for him. They hadn't been the right parents for him. Had somehow been less than, the egos. And he just broke down. He said, I cried my eyes out because I realized that I'd just been ridiculously ungrateful all my life. And I've been carrying this around for 70 years. This sort of internal negativity around his parents, because he's in his 80s. And he just let it go that morning. Finally, he said, I let go of all of that negativity and baggage that I've been carrying for 70 years in one morning. But it wasn't one morning. It was the whole 6-week process that did it for him. There was no doubt, he'd been kind of softened up and opened up. And then that particular process for him, the holotropic or metamorphic breathing, as I now call it, did it for him. So you never know what's going to work. But when you put all these elements in to the pot and someone does them for 6 weeks, I believe I've tried to make this course the most genuinely transformational course that anyone will ever do, because there's all these different elements combining, and you never know what's going to work. But a combination of all of those, you're much more likely to get an epiphany experience like that. So there's a video there which you can go and watch on the 5 things, but I've been through them. So just to recap, because I'm sure you probably want to go to sleep at some point.
I'm on my way.
Just to recap what's involved. So the letting go, you get the letting go meditation power pack, which incorporates the guided letting go meditation. That's a 1-hour meditation, but there's also 40 minutes and a half-hour versions. So depending on how long you want to do it for, I'd recommend the hour, but if you can only make half an hour, then do that. You get a power sleep track to help you to get to sleep more easily and sleep more deeply. It's binaural beats track, which you can do along with your evening meditation, evening reflection. You get a course manual, which contains 50 pages of pretty inspirational information. There's 12 transformational experiential exercises. You get these 2 short breath break messages every day sent via WhatsApp to help you to consciously breathe and guide you through the mind training exercise for the day. You get 2 daily emails, so 1 in the morning, 1 in the evening, to just top you up, which contain everything you need for the day: the mind training exercise, the reading, the link to the recorded discussion session. You get audio recordings as well to guide you through some of these processes, value affirmations in the morning, so you can maybe try incorporating that into your morning schedule, and also to reflect on the day before bed. There's about 70 plus hours of recorded discussion and meditation sessions that you have access to, 14 hours of live weekly discussion and group exercise sessions during the course. So there's 7 sessions of about 2 hours each, 30 hours of live online meditation sessions. I give you professional meditation recordings as well. So if you can't make the live sessions, you can link to those recordings, which guide you through the lesson of the day, for the Course in Miracles lesson. So what I've done is I've taken a very kind of meditative approach to it. So instead of just reading it, you do it as a meditation. And I think that really brings the lessons to life. Because it is a meditative practice. Those lessons are meditations, just with some mindfulness and mind training kind of built into them. So that's the way I do it anyway. And you get access to the Facebook group. So there's loads of content. There's, and if this isn't enough for you, there's stuff going back to the first course I did in 2018. There's videos.
Information overload.
Yeah. So you can go, you can go as deep into the information as you want to. There's more than enough to keep you busy. But if you just do a few of the core practices, like the meditations, for instance, if you did say a live meditation every day, you did the group discussion sessions, you're doing the breath breaks, all of that stuff is going to have an impact. There's no doubt, over the 6 weeks. And it might just give you something else. I don't know what that is. I can't say what that is, but it might just be a door that opens in your mind to another level of awareness and experience, which is what the course is designed to do. And everyone's going to get a different experience. I can't guarantee what you'll have, but I can guarantee that if you do it, you will have some profound experiences. I can say that. So just to tell you the details, I made a lockdown until the lockdown's lifted, which is technically in a few hours, sort of lifted. The course is normally I'd do it for 190 pounds, but I made it 97 pounds as a kind of a lockdown special, because I understand people are locked down, maybe income's scarce, and just really want to give people an incentive to do it. So so it's 97 pounds, which is something like 2,300 rand odd at the moment, depending on the exchange rate. To do the 6-week course, you get all of the stuff that I've mentioned: the emails, the breath breaks, the live discussion sessions, the live meditation sessions, and you can interact with it and use it as you want to. You know what I mean? You integrate it into your life and do it as you want to. If you do want to get deeper into the course, I don't think you're going to find a Course in Miracles I'm talking about. I don't think you're going to find a better program than this. I've looked around. There's many people teaching the course, obviously. There's many programs out there. But there's nothing as comprehensive as this that actually walks you through step by step over 6 weeks. Really an introduction. So we do the first 35 lessons of the course, of the workbook. We do the first 5 chapters of the text, which is a good taste of it. And if after 6 weeks you go, okay, this isn't for me, I've learned some stuff, but this really isn't for me, then at least you'll know, yes, this is for me or it's not. But just give it a chance over the 6 weeks to really immerse yourself in, and you might be surprised. There's a lot of people who've had your sort of experience where they've gone to the course and they've gone, I'm not really sure about that. I'm not sure if it's for me or not, or something about it, but maybe the language puts them more for the Christian terminology, or whatever it is. And then they do this course and they're like, actually, this really got me into it, and then they follow it. Most of the people who've done my course are on the path. They're still doing it. A lot of them are part of the community. So you saw Debbie and Hazel. They've been long-time course students, but there's a community after this. So it's not. I think that's also a big problem with a lot of courses. So you do a course and it's like, okay, and then what?
Yes.
So I've done the course, and now there's no sort of follow-up, or done the course and you've kind of left me in limbo, or maybe you have a more expensive follow-up course for another 6 weeks. That's not really what it's about. It's about, if it resonates with you and it works for you, then there's a community, and you can get on this in this community on the program on an ongoing basis. So it becomes part of your, it's like spiritual gym. This is something you do as part of your daily life, that works for you. And the 6 week course will give you, the taste of that or not. So there's a 3 week free trial. Won't charge you anything if you don't like it in the first 3 weeks. I think that's a fair time. Give it a chance. If it doesn't work for you, I'll give you a full refund. If it does, then you continue, and hopefully continue with the course. But there have been a few people who've said, no, it's not for me, which is why I did the 3 week free trial thing, because I don't want to take anyone's money if they're not 100% happy. And one of the chaps, actually, Mike Fairwell, I've got a testimonial from here. I'm not sure. No, I haven't. Anyway, he said, actually it was great. I really learned a lot, but he just couldn't quite get his head around the non-dual aspect of it in the teaching, because he had another path that he followed. And so after 19 days or something, he said, thank you, I've learned a lot. And he gave me some really good testimonials, but he said, I'm not going to continue. Which is fair enough. It's like, okay, you gave it a chance, you gave it a go, and it's not for you. But he really did. I mean, he did 2 sessions a day. We were doing 2 discussion sessions a day. He really immersed himself in it. So the 3 week free trial, money back guarantee, is just so that, like, okay, look, there's no risk. If you don't like it and it doesn't work for you, I'll give you your money back. because I don't want you to do it and feel hardly done by, like you did something and it didn't work for you. And after 3 weeks, you'll know, this is either for you or not. I'm either going to continue or just, say, right, I've had a 3-week taste of this and it's not for me, and thank you. Maybe hopefully you've got some value out of it. I think everyone who's done it has got some value out of it, but yeah, I'm trying to make it as risk-free as possible. And you get
listen, John, I don't think there's any risk in this type of in what you're doing here. I mean, there's no risk really. I mean, this is, you can see you put a lot of thought into that, and you've done a lot of really a lot of work into this. I mean, you are totally and utterly passionate about what you do. There's no fucking two ways about it.
Well, thank you. I'll take it as a compliment.
No,
yeah, I mean, I have put a lot into it. There's no doubt.
No, but it's not only because of what I'm seeing here tonight. It's just since I've known you. I mean, it's always you just and not so much passionate about it, but passionate about sharing it and wanting other people to benefit from it. And I think that's even more commendable than anything else. I mean, forget about the material. It's your, I don't know, your whole thing behind it. It's just, yeah, I don't know. Actually, I don't know too many people like you, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I'm not sure they are. I mean, not to. I don't want to blow my own trumpet or something, but I have had quite a sort of different life, really, very different experiences, and I guess I've just followed I've followed the way that has opened up for me, that Spirit's guided me. And I mean, you always have, everyone's got resistance and blocks to overcome, but I guess I just do it. I'm like, okay, well, I've got to do this, so let's carry on. And the same with this course. I mean, it hasn't been an easy thing to put together and create.
I can see that, and it's done. It looks well presented. It looks. I mean, really, for anybody that's like, yeah. So I have to admit, it's not my cup of tea. I must be honest with you. We spoke about it last year. Yeah, it's nice. I'm really enjoying what I'm doing at the moment, and it's pretty much taking me a lot of time to go and do something else now. It's a bit like I would come to you now and tell you something about something else or something, and said, forget about all of this and do something different. Well, it would be a bit difficult, I suppose, because it's, I always look at these journeys as a wheel, with all the spokes going to that center point. And yeah, so, we all going to get, well, somehow we're all going to get to the center part, from the outside to the center, hopefully.
Yeah.
So I'm really, what I'm doing right now, the stuff I'm studying now, and the way it's being done and the way the school is run, all of these things, it's, okay, listen, I've been doing it now for 10 years or 11 years now, so it's really, I'm really loving it so much. I don't see a need to do anything else, let's put it that way.
Okay, that's absolutely fair enough.
And I promise you, if today I would be like blank and I wouldn't be doing anything, I think I jump on this. And it's not even a money aspect, believe you me, because I think what you are charging there, you are really, it's crazy for all that work. Is that what you're charging people? That is crazy. I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I could charge more.
Then don't charge. Then don't charge. I mean, if you want to give it away, give it away. Then to go and ask somebody to pay 2,000 rand for a course like this is it's unbelievable. So what I'm trying to say is, it's just. Like I explained in the beginning, I've searched different things, and somehow I came across this path. And it's not fanaticism or something. This is the only way or anything. Not at all. I'm probably more open than ever, about anything. It's not even nothing at all. It's just that I'm just enjoying so much what I'm doing right now. I'm doing a little bit the same. I'm studying during the week, and then on the weekends I'm also tutoring a little bit. And that whole thing, it's just just a beautiful journey at the moment that I'm going through.
Yeah, that's good.
And also, I mean, if you look at this whole situation that we're going through right now, if it wouldn't have been for these 10 years that I've been at the school, probably would have jumped off the roof or something like that. I don't know what I would have done.
It's preparation, isn't it? Everything you do is preparation for what's to come. Well, that's really good.
And you present this to me, I always feel a little bit bad because it is so beautifully done and everything the way that you do it, and it's so much. Forget even about what you're showing. It's just the passion behind it. It's your heart and your soul that you put behind this whole thing, and that to me, it's just that's why I like chatting to you. I like listening to you and things like that, But to go and turn around whatever I'm doing now to go and do something different, it's really nothing, and it doesn't even matter really. I mean, I could still do that as well, but I don't see the need for it right now.
Oh, okay, well, fair enough. If ever you
in 6 months' time, you might just say, okay, well, I get this.
Yeah, exactly. The course isn't going anywhere. I've created it, and it's available. It's out there. So if you ever decide that you want to study A Course in Miracles in a proper structured way, then you know where to come, because this is the course is Model Letting Go course is designed primarily around that. That's kind of the center point. There's a lot of other stuff, as you saw, meditation and breath work and whatever, but I think there needs to be a kind of core teaching or philosophy, that's the kind of the anchor around it. So when the time's right, if and when, then you know where to find me.
And I appreciate that you're not giving up on me. every year you give me the little presentation. Okay, well, that's nice. And now I'll listen to you because I want to listen to you. I'm really enjoying it.
Well, that's good. Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do this, because I'm going to. I hope you don't mind, just with your permission. I'm gonna put this on my page, this presentation, as a recording.
Yes.
So that people can watch the recording, because I think we've shared it's been really nice. I've really enjoyed the interaction with you. It's been more of a discussion than a presentation, which is nice. It's much more much more fun and interactive that way. And that's really what the discussion sessions are about. That it's more interactive than just a flat presentation. I did a course last year, which was a sort of personal growth course called Lifebook, and I did it free, basically, because I said, well, pay a deposit, and then if you're not happy at the end, you can get your deposit back. It's free if you do all the modules. It's like, okay, fine, I'll do the course and see. But what it lacked was it was too flat. It was just the guy, and he's sitting there, he's standing there, and he's presenting, for an hour of video material or something, and you had the option of audio, but there's no interaction. Do you know what I mean? There's no discussion. There's no okay, so it was just like a flat, right, here's the information. They had some Q&A sessions as well, where people could ask questions, and they would answer them, but it wasn't a live interaction. They weren't like actually interacting with the people. And I thought, it was missing some element of depth because of that. It was a flat presentation type course.
Exactly.
Whereas, I think there's something that happens in live interaction and discussion that you just can't, that you can never capture that in a flat presentation. It doesn't have the same quality and energy. So thank you, because this is a presentation, but it's a discussion, and hopefully, if people are coming to my website and they watch this, it will make the site come alive. Instead of just being words, it'll be like, okay, actually I'm starting to get some deeper insight into the energy, as you say, the energy, the intentions behind the words of myself, and some of these ideas which we've bounced off each other. So it's been fantastic. Thank you. I really, really
it's been great.
Appreciate your time, and I hope you enjoyed it. I did. And absolutely no hard feelings. You're on a spiritual path already. really, I've
Yes,
designed this for someone who's not on a spiritual path. If you have a dedicated spiritual path and you're happy with that and it's working for you, well, then why would you look anywhere else? You're already happy. It's working for you.
Yes, yes. And it's also taking quite a bit of time, you know, so it's not as if you could say, well, I could do something else or something.
Yeah,
It is really...
obviously, just practically, there's the time component as well. You only got so many hours in the day with spiritual practice. So, this is designed for someone who's seeking, who's going, okay, I'm looking for a way. And I might have dabbled in many ways. I might have tried A Course in Miracles. I might have done this or done that. But I'm looking for a disciplined, structured program to really help me to transform my life. That's what it is. To transform my thinking, to transform my life, to cope with what's being thrown at us now. Because I think this is putting a lot of people into a crisis situation where their existing modus operandi is not going to cut it. They're not going to be able to cope with what's happening. And they're going to need to.
And I think, the way you're doing it, the sort of hand holding makes a tremendous difference to the way you would go through the book, through the Course of Miracles, because it's Course in Miracles. It's what you need. You need a little bit of hand holding in this whole thing. Well, quite a bit, I think. Yeah. If you're just going to do it yourself, it could be. That's what I tried to do at the time. Yeah. You go through. Probably went to 3 or 4 of the sessions, or these whatever you call them, and that was it. Then you give up on the whole thing.
What, you went to some group sessions, group discussions, or something?
No. I just did it myself. I just read through the exercises.
Through the lessons, yeah.
Through the lessons, I mean, yeah. Because that's what I liked about the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then you do them, but there's nobody with you. It's a bit like similar to the book, the Eckhart Tolle books. I love Eckhart Tolle. I think I've listened. I mean, I don't read books. I just listen. But it's amazing stuff. But the problem with it is there is no practical component to the whole thing. So it's all stuff that makes sense. So intellectually, it's all there. It's fantastic. It's like, wow. And then you close the book, and that's it. Yeah. There is nothing further. You understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
So what you have now is you have a whole lot of information in your head, which is great, But that is really the part that is missing. And what you are saying now with that interaction with people, it becomes a more sort of, you add a human factor to it, people's experiences to it, because that's for instance what we do without saying it. So we do it at the school. So we go through very, very small chapters and parts, and then we discuss the experiences that you've had, not some story that from Joe Soap around the corner who did this and that, and that's no. We're not interested in that. We are more interested in your experience about this particular topic. And through doing that, you actually have a good look inside, and you start saying, "Oh, shucks, is that how I'm thinking? Is that what's really happening?" And that is really, in my view, but that's because it sort of clicks with me, if you understand what I'm saying. For other people, it might be
absolutely. So that discussion that you mentioned, I think it's one. That's why I included it as one of the secrets. It's one of those really overlooked things. People are like, spiritual discussing these things and making it personal. Okay, so what do you think? What are your issues? How's this affecting you? That's where the rubber meets the road.
Exactly.
Just listening to the theory, it can be helpful. It's a starting point. I've been to, in fact, a retreat we did here with a very well-known teacher of A Course in Miracles. But it was 90 to 95% theoretical. He's just sitting here and he's talking, and it's all, and it's like rambling on for 2 hours about course concepts. And it's like, okay, is this really the most effective way to learn this stuff? To just sit and listen to someone talking about the theory?
Yes.
Not really. There was no interaction or engagement. Okay, so what do you think then? Audience participation. What do you think? Oh, well, share your story of how. Okay, so how does fear affect you? What do you think of COVID-19? And what's happening in your mind? And then you start to unpack that, and then you apply the principles in that particular situation with that person. And then a whole lot of people go, oh, I resonate with that, because I feel exactly the same way she does.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very powerful modality.
Yeah, I was actually just going to say, it's actually, what is it that when you listen to somebody else's experience, that it does something to you as well? I'm just trying to think now of the mechanics behind it, but there is something that happens just by sitting in a group and listening to each other's experience. There is something that's
it's called rapport. It could be a word to use. You've got a rapport with the person, or you've got a connection, a recognition of yourself in them. It's like you see yourself in their situation. So there's an identification, which allows it to be very personal for you. I think the big mistake a lot of teachers and courses make is they don't bring it down to the personal level. So, you can talk theory all you like, nothing real can be threatened, nothing unreal exists, herein lies the peace of God. That's the summary of A Course in Miracles in 3 sentences.
Yes.
But until it becomes very personal in your own experience, okay, so what am I experiencing? And how do I actually apply that kind of thinking and that principle in my life to my particular problems that I'm encountering? And this, I can actually do that. This is helpful for me to solve some of these seemingly practical problems. It's a very dry sort of intellectual exercise, which doesn't really have that much relevance, to be honest. Which I think is a lot of the reason why people fall off the wagon. They just don't get into the course. They can't do it. They can't find that way to sort of integrate it and go, yeah, actually this can be helpful in my daily life, very helpful. And I can see how it can be. And I think, what you said earlier, I think 95% of people maybe will really struggle on their own. First time, read the course, right, I'm just going to do this. I'm going to work through it on my own. Majority of people will really, really struggle because it's not the easiest language, as you know. The concepts are sometimes mind-splitting. So when and your ego is going to have huge resistance to it. So you got all these points of resistance, and if you're on your own, well, what's likely to happen is you just give up and you just don't do it, which is probably what happens, sadly, for about 90 to 95% of Course in Miracles books that have been bought. I don't think anyone's ever done a formal survey. There's something like 3 million copies being sold. I would reckon maybe 95% haven't really been read very much at all. They're just
100%.
sitting on people's bookshelves. They might dip into them every now and then, but to actually really, really read and work through the course systematically is it's quite a process. It's quite a commitment. So if and when you're ready for that, let me know.
Thank you, Jonah.
All right. Thank you for your time, Patrick. I really appreciate it. And
nice chatting to you.
Yeah. Feel free to join any of the meditations. We do meditations twice a day in Zoom. So the same way you logged in here, you just log in at 1:30 p.m. and 6 p.m. If you'd like me to remind you, I'll put you. 6 p.m. Okay, so I'll put you into a group called Free Meditations. It's a WhatsApp group, and I send them reminders saying, "Oh, there's a meditation happening now." So you'll know.
Yeah.
And you can just log in the same way you did. Got the login.
Fantastic.
All right. All right.
Stop.
Thanks so
Look
much
after yourself.
for listening. Yeah, 2.5 hours. Wow, you're a what they call a bitter ender. Stay till the end. 2.5 hours, but I really enjoyed it, and I hope you did. I hope it was a valuable use of your time, and we will keep in touch.
Yeah, and keep doing what you're doing. Thank you so much. All the best.
All right.
Cheers, Jono. Bye.
Yes. Have a nice evening. Bye for now.